Hi, this is Jason Charnick, and welcome to Head Above Water, a new podcast not just about filmmaking, but about how to find some peace and happiness in this crazy topsy-turvy world of the entertainment industry and filmmaking and movie making and all of that fun stuff, show business, if you will. We have a very exciting guest for you guys today. We'll be speaking with Anna Keizer, who's a dear friend of mine. We used to work together at a production company many years ago. I'm very excited to be on board her latest project. It's called She Had It Coming. I'll be editing it. It's a short film that she wrote and is the executive producer on. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, but we're also going to talk about crowdfunding. And it's not going to be your usual crowdfunding conversation. It's not going to be about how to find people to give to your campaign or how to build outreach and stuff like that. You guys can, find that kind of information in a million other places. But when you're having a crowdfunding campaign, it's also a very stressful time. Every day is, a lot of work trying to see if you can get the money that you need to make the project that you want. And it can be very stressful. And there's a lot of ins and outs to that. So we're going to talk to Anna about her latest crowdfunding campaign for She Had It Coming and what it was like to run her first crowdfunding campaign and the things that kept her up at night and the things that she is concerned with. And hopefully you guys have some interest in hearing about that. Also, I'd like to remind you guys that the wonderful music you guys are listening to today is from the wonderful composer Jason David White. You can check him out on SoundCloud at Jason David White. And this episode is also brought to you by Upstart Film Collective. Upstart, we can make DCPs to rock your world. So if you're looking for a DCP for your movie, please feel free to get in touch with me. I make all my DCPs for all my projects here in-house, and I'd like to help you out with your project as well. So drop me a line and let's see if we can make it happen. And until then, enjoy Anna Keizer, enjoy this week's episode, and stay tuned. We have some really fun guests coming up in the future. So we hope you guys join us for future episodes of Head Above Water, and we'll see you on the other side. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the show. I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to talk to you.
Thank you for having me in your home and being on the show. And we'll just have a good time with it and see where things go and just have a blast.
Absolutely. I'm very excited.
Great. So I wanted to ask, so I am editing your picture right now.
This is correct.
Which is She Had It Coming. We'll let you plug it later. I'll probably plug it too since I am working on it and all that. But you just finished your first ever crowdfunding for it.
I did, yes.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So, let's jump back a little bit. So you've been a writer for how long now?
I have been a screenwriter, emerging, aspiring, whatever you want to say, screenwriter for, a decade.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is your first foray into actually going from script to screen.
Pretty much. I mean, when I was an undergrad, production classes, we had to write and direct our own stuff. So I have ventured into it, but this is the first time.
You've directed stuff before? I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, some student films.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, where are these student films? Where can we find these? Are these on YouTube?
They're in my closet right now, 16 millimeter.
So
it's like old
not
school.
YouTube, on film.
Cut and splice. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
And you edited this yourself?
Yep.
On a flatbed?
Yep.
I did not know this about you. This
it's
is
sitting in my closet.
Why are you not editing your own picture?
Oh, I mean, I love editing, but no, you're my guy.
You wanted like
I'm taking it all back,
the
Jason.
big professionals. Okay. Listen, I learned on a flatbed myself and haven't used one in.
I mean, we can have a whole conversation about that too, but like it truly saddens me that a lot of schools don't do that anymore. Everything is digital.
Nobody shoots on film anymore.
I know.
So like, why teach?
We had the Bolex, we had everything.
Sure,
so,
yeah. Why teach skills to
I know, but it helps because you are actually visually seeing how. I mean, whatever. You're right. There's no more actual film making, but
there's always been something for me. It's always been a very tangible feeling. The two, shots come together. And
I loved
it. It's a very it connects me with the work, even though I'm working on video now.
No, absolutely. And I love editing. I love seeing the effect that you can have when you put two different cuts together and, like looping it back to that Seed and Spark, those couple videos that I did just for kind of promoting, like that was my sweet spot. Like I can edit a 2-minute video and I have a lot of fun doing it. But yeah. So you're my guy.
Well, I'm glad to be on board.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk to you about your Seed and Spark.
Okay.
Because this is your first foray into crowdfunding.
It is.
So as a screenwriter who's now decided to actually, produce and get the picture made and move, it's a different art, obviously, than screenwriting. And,
Yep.
whenever you're writing a movie, like you always, I assume the goal when you're writing a movie is you want that movie to be made someday, but they're totally different mediums from the page to the screen. So going into your first Seed and Spark, like what were your fears? What were you really worried about? Trying to, get people interested in your picture without having that experience necessarily to, because you have to take your, the crowd that's going to support you, you have to kind of give them something to believe in. And when you're kind of going into it fresh, as I did as well, like you want to connect with people, but there's a fear behind it because you don't really know, especially if this is your first time doing it.
Absolutely.
You don't really know
what the outcome's going to be.
What's going to happen and how you do that.
No, I mean, it was really scary because this was so far outside of my comfort zone. I don't think I'm alone in that. I don't think most people like asking for money, that's essentially what you're doing.
Right.
So, I mean, I'll start, I guess, with kind of the things that I felt were on my side with this. First of all, I've written several scripts. This particular project is the short version of a feature that I wrote, same title, She Had It Coming. And I was very fortunate because over the last year, it got a little bit of interest. And I say that with an modicum of modesty, because when I say interest, I don't mean like anything studio or production companies. I just mean that
people were responding to it.
Yeah, they were responding to material. The pages essentially that we shot for the short were read at Breakthrough Reading Series. That got me in touch with one of our actors who also produced on it. And then from there, the feature version of it was a second rounder at the Austin Film Festival. And I just say these things because because
you have to talk yourself into it sometime. Like I belong here.
Exactly. And when the Seed and Spark launched, a lot of people in my life were already aware of these things having happened for me. And so it was like, okay, this makes sense. She's making this film that's already gotten some interest. And so that was kind of on my side. And then also, I should make clear that the actual production of the short was self-funded.
Okay, right.
Myself and my executive producing partner, Skylar Schock, we funded it ourselves. And so I think that also helped because it showed our crowdfunding supporters that we believe.
You believe, right.
Yeah,
okay.
We put our own money behind the production. So the Seed and Spark was specifically for finishing and marketing in the whole, eventual, hopefully, film festival circuit. So those were the good things. But as far as the fears with the crowdfunding, I mean, the fears were everything else.
Right.
Like you said, I'm a writer. I mean, even just the production of the short brought up a ton of anxiety for me because I never really thought of myself as a production gal. And so that had its whole set of worries.
Yeah, they're not just two different mediums of art. They're two different mediums of just everything at that point. Writing a script, you can do it in your underwear, in your bedroom, anywhere you want, on the couch, and no one has to see you, and you're not answering to anybody, and maybe you've already convinced yourself no one's going to see this thing anyway, it'll never be made anyway, so I'm just going to do my own thing and be happy with it. But then when you start to put something into production, now there's all these other external forces. Now you're working with other people, and now you're dealing with personnel, and you're accountable to other people. Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, even before the Seed and Spark, we had our actors come in, all amazing actors, and we put them all in deferred payment, so they were just believing in the material.
Right.
We had all these other things that, with people calling in favors or taking reduced rates for being part of the production. We knew that we were going to need to do this crowdfunding to be able to finish the film, but it's still... Yeah, you get to the point where it's like, okay, we've come so far. We've actually shot the project, but you still don't know if there's going to be enough people who believe in it. And really, they might think, oh, that's kind of a fun idea, I guess, but it's really them choosing to believe in you. And then that's probably the scariest thing is that it's very much a vulnerable position to be in because, of course, people have a myriad of reasons why they may not be able to contribute financially to a crowdfunder, but you don't know those reasons. it's not necessarily your business to know those reasons.
Right.
All you know is that these people aren't giving to you.
Right.
And so you think it's very personal.
Yeah.
So it's not a great feeling.
And it's, and at least for me, like, so we had our original Kickstarter in 2012 and I knew that this was going to be like, it's very different than a short movie, certainly, or even a narrative. Like I knew this was going to be like a 6-year journey. And it's really the weird thing about Kickstarter and the whole crowdfunding thing is I found people are more than happy to give you $20-$30 here and there to support you and push you forward and, get your back in that way. But in my mind, like I had to, like, knowing that it was going to take 5 or 6 years, I felt beholden to these people. Like a couple of strangers gave to our Kickstarter. Like I had no idea who they were. They just, for whatever, browsing on Kickstarter for whatever reason, saw the picture, connected with it and wanted to contribute to it. And the anxiety level just goes up. I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I'm not going to have a movie.
Something.
And the funny thing is, I was like, I think I had put in the Kickstarter that we were going to finish it around 2015. And that's a very short timeline for a documentary. Documentaries take 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I met a guy just during the week who's in year 9 of his documentary, and he's still got about a year, maybe 2 years left to go. And I wanted to make sure I gave people something for their money, just so they weren't waiting. And, so and my uncle's an artist and he's in the picture, and, I printed out some of his artwork and gave them as like immediate perks. Because I was like, if you're going to give me your hard-earned money, like to do that, like I said, even though I've kind of discovered people are more than happy to do so, it for me is just a huge responsibility that,
absolutely,
like these people have trusted you with their money, and who knows, maybe these people are loaded and rich and $20 to them is like 20 cents to me, but like it's still $20.
Right.
And I'm like, I got to get you something for that money. And if I don't, like I feel like I'm getting over on you. Like I'm stealing your money.
Well, I think it means that much more when somebody is willing to, I mean, look, any kind of support really truly means the world to me, even if that means that and I don't want to say that all they can do, but if the choice is that they can share it through Facebook or they can tweet about it, like that's phenomenal. And I try to make it really clear to everybody, like if that's what you're able to do and you feel compelled to do that, that's great.
Right.
If somebody that was able to contribute financially, it means that much more to me, because not only, I mean, there's absolutely the component of like feeling, and it's not a negative connotation, but like feeling obligated because they believe in you. So you want to reciprocate and give them something that they can be proud of, that they contributed towards. But also I do feel like, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Seed and Spark, like there's so many of these platforms.
Yeah.
And it's become very popular to do these kinds of things, GoFundMe. So I feel like there's a little bit of like crowdfunding fatigue already.
Yeah.
And so for someone to actually say, okay, I see these all the time, but I'm still going to give to you, it means that much more to me.
Right.
That they're like, sure, I
How
get
do you
inundated.
stand out?
Yeah. And especially like this was something that I saw throughout the life of the Seed and Spark campaign. I mean, I had people from all different parts of my life contribute, and I'm grateful to each and every one of them. But
Except that one guy, you know who you are.
But it truly meant the world to me when I saw that another creative was giving, because a lot of us don't have a lot of expendable funds, or we are working on our own stuff, where that money could be going towards. So especially meant a lot to me to have other people who are in the same industry giving, because that's phenomenal.
Is that why you chose the Seed and Spark? Because Seed and Spark is more geared towards movies specifically, but more geared towards like a creative atmosphere. Kickstarter 2. Indiegogo's kind of gone down more of a product road. Even Kickstarter has a lot of products, and I see a lot of big companies now like Philips and Relco, like they have like a new projector or something that they're raising money for on Kickstarter. Like a lot of companies, like
that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, they release their products like like filmmaking equipment and different different things and stuff, and they'll have it through Kickstarter. And
also, we can have a conversation about what you would maybe say are more established creatives and filmmakers also using those platforms, because there's a conversation to be had there too about like, when do you go that route when maybe you have access to other means of funding, whereas maybe you and I don't. Right. So anyway,
does that so like, does that make you upset? Does that make you angry, jealous?
I guess my first reaction is surprise that that's the route they took. Perhaps I should give a little bit of space to them in terms of giving benefit of the doubt that maybe for them, that's also like, look, another part of the Seed and Spark, obviously hitting our funding goal was very important and stressful. But also what really was wonderful about the Seed and Spark, even throughout all those stressful days, was getting word out about the project. So maybe I should, say, well, maybe they're just trying to do the same thing. They're just trying to,
it's the whole new thing about building an audience before the movie's even out there and getting people hungry for it, so that when the movie's ready, they've already got people who are invested and want to see it. And on one level, it's great, because it's just another avenue for filmmakers to get their word out there. But on another level, I totally see it that way. It's like, wait a minute, dude, like, I know you can raise, like, I know people, like, I know you've worked with studios.
Then again, it like just makes me scratch my head, because I'm like, well, gosh, if this person has to go this route as well, what does that mean for the rest of us?
Why am I even bothering with this? Even when I get established, I gotta still always be begging for funds.
This is literally going to be a lifelong thing. But to your question about, why Seed and Spark, I don't know if I necessarily ever, to be quite honest, gave serious thought to using other platforms, only because from the moment that Skylar and I decided that, yes, this is what we were going to have to do to finish this film, I had already heard about it. I knew that it was a platform specifically for creatives and filmmakers. I thought that the individuals behind it, namely Emily Best, really were invested in making sure that the people who use the platform find success.
Absolutely.
And
that support is enormous.
It's enormous. They do a great job of walking you through. They have about a dozen videos that kind of go over every aspect of...
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never done one with them, so I don't know the whole process of it.
They really are there for the filmmakers and the creatives. And so it just felt like the right way to go. Yeah, and I mean, it's a really easy platform, and also when you submit, they have a real live person go through your campaign.
Really?
And then, get back to saying, here's maybe where we think you could tweak.
They give you notes.
They give you notes.
Oh, wow. I don't think I ever got notes from anybody. You kind of just have to go. And actually, when we had our Kickstarter too, what was happening a lot back then, this is again 2012, 2013, where people were getting greenlit and hitting their goals. And Kickstarter's different in that it's like all or nothing. There's no 80%. There's no like get what you get and that's yours. It was like you have to pick a goal. That's also very stressful, because you have to like, what am I gonna like? Do I ask for 5,000? Do I ask for 50,000? I really have no idea, because I don't know how people are going to respond.
And you do see a fair amount of disparity between like people who seemingly are doing the same kind of campaigns for the same kind of maybe scope of projects, but they're asking for like vastly different amounts. So like
so like where do you even come up with that from? Yeah, but like with Kickstarter for a while, people were getting greenlit and getting their money and not finishing stuff. And either, I don't want to say take the money and run, but take the money and run. And you didn't know who was legit. You didn't know who wasn't. There wasn't a lot of vetting. And I remember, I want to say it was like 2014, maybe 2015, I kind of fell out of it a little bit. So, if any listeners want to, chime in and let me know when it was, they added a section where you had to say, here are the risks. Here is specifically, if you give us money, here's specifically the challenges that we face, like, so you like, just something that lets people know that like, you're not guaranteed anything. I had given, when I had the Kickstarter, I wanted to also be involved in that community. And so I gave to a couple of different pictures, little small dollar amounts, $20 here and there, $10, whatever. But there were also some products that I really dug. Yeah. One of them, I don't remember what it was called, so don't hold me to it, but it was like it was an iPhone camera handle. And it was like, and it had like a fold out thing that like could become a stand as well. And it was like, and you can pre-purchase. They specifically say you're donating to the campaign. You're not buying this item.
Okay.
But I was like, this seems like a really cool thing. I want it, and so I gave to it. And then the guy's his deadlines started slipping. He's like, we're going to be done, in 2013 in December, and we'll get it to you then. And then December would roll around and like, oh, we're not ready yet, but we're going to get it to you in a couple months. And maybe, I don't know, 6 to 8 months had passed and nobody got the product that they thought they were getting. And Kickstarter was very, people were complaining to Kickstarter and saying, we're not, we bought this thing, what's up? And Kickstarter was specifically saying, well, you didn't buy it. You were giving to this campaign. And then when this guy finally got his product out there, people were seeing it in the stores before the Kickstarter people were even getting theirs.
Wow.
So like people were like, I've been waiting for a fucking year.
And you supported this
to get this thing, and I supported
way back when.
And followed you this whole time, and now you're selling it in Best Buy before I even get mine. And a lot of people were doing that, like, it's gonna not to focus on this one dude, but
that's just an example of
one of the dangers of Kickstarter. And like I said, as a filmmaker, myself, I felt like I owed to people. And when you're giving to a total stranger, you don't know what you're really getting into.
Nope.
And I took that responsibility very much to heart. And as our deadline started to slip, because I promised people a finished movie in 2014 and then 2015 and then 2016, and I was, and sometimes like the movie would take a break for like months at a time,
right?
Because work would get hectic, or I just needed a break from it.
That's something
and
that
you feel like you owe these people, and you're like, I'm sorry, and then you see other people not give a shit at all, and then you don't see the support from Kickstarter.
Right.
And you're like, wait a minute, like I'm doing this all by myself here, and thank you for the platform.
Yes.
But like some support from the company would have been nice, and that's what I've heard that's good about Seed and Spark.
Yeah, I mean, just backtracking briefly, when you were talking about sometimes you go for months at a time without working on it, I think some people don't realize, like, if you get the funding for something, it's not like all of a sudden this is your personal income.
Right.
It's identifying as personal income for tax purposes.
Right.
This is you,
otherwise.
Paying for stuff, but also like it's still essentially a passion project, and you still have your life. And so there's a balance to be had in terms of continuing to move forward and be accountable for what you promise to people. And that is something that Seed and Spark is very serious about.
They don't want people because it makes their platform look
exactly. It reflects on them.
Yeah,
it reflects
on them. If
them.
someone cuts and runs,
exactly.
People are going to stop doing business with them.
Even down to what they label as incentives, where like you give in certain increments and you get little rewards,
perks and rewards. Yeah,
they even are really double down on saying like if you promise somebody something, you need to give it to them. And there's even for every person that contributes. On the website, just from my eyes only, you see all these people lined up, and then it shows you where you have to tick off that you've actually fulfilled your incentive to them.
See, a Kickstarter, like I said, I don't know if they'd have that now,
right?
But back then, like I had to set up my own spreadsheet and keep track of
it's right there.
Who gets a DVD, who gets a poster, who gets a this, who gets a that, and like you can see their levels on there, but like. I had to do all that heavy lifting.
It's sitting in front of you the entire time, so like you can't really. It is great. It is great, and I think that's like you said, really important because you are accountable to these people. And I mean, part of it, I'll say that just through my personal Seed and Spark, I'm sure that there are lots of them where they had maybe a significant amount of people that weren't personal connections that contributed. I only had kind of a couple of those between me and Skylar's, kind of contacts and connections. Most of them were people within our circles, whether that's professional or personal. So I say that because like I'm going to continue to see these people, so like that's another level of it. It's like
they'll know if
I'm not getting away from it. Like but again, it's just kind of another layer. And sure, it could be looked at in kind of a stressful kind of way, but I take it those questions that are even coming 3 weeks after the close of the campaign. I do take that in a positive way because people just care. And
What do you mean? People were contacting you?
oh yeah, I've definitely gotten people already asking about like how's post going and that
Oh,
sort
right.
of thing. And
But not during the campaign itself. Or were people reaching out and saying, hey,
no, not too much, unless they weren't clear that this was for the finishing funds. Some people are just, and it's fine, they're not reading the fine print about
Sure.
like what exactly we're asking this for. But no, just after the close of it, I've gotten some people, and it's great. You have to say, well, we're still kind of chugging
yeah, but
along.
that is the accountability.
That
like,
is the
like
accountability.
now, like I gotta do something,
Yeah.
or else they're gonna come after me.
Exactly.
So let me jump back for a second. Then, so you said production itself was self-funded. You don't have to be specific with any
Sure.
numbers if you don't want. Like that's got to be scary. You're putting your personal money into. I know you believe in the project. And I bring it up because I was speaking to someone the other day about it, and Mark Duplass, who's big in the South by Southwest world and the indie world and whatever, he had a keynote speech at South by Southwest in 2016, I think it was, and my friend had asked a question. And he had said something to the effect of, and again, if anybody out there wants to correct me, please, by all means, had said something like, oh, great, you have your script, now like just go put $10,000 on your credit card and go shoot your movie. And I just found that to be very irresponsible.
Reckless.
Very reckless. It upset, because he's from humble beginnings, just like us, and went out and made his pictures and tried to do what he needed to do before he, became, who he is now. But, the stories of like Kevin Smith and Robert Rodriguez and, putting $7,000 on your credit card and going into debt, like, I get that it's a personal project and it's a passion project, and you want to, like, you're going to back your shit, but it just, to recommend to somebody to put something on their credit card just feels like, have you forgotten where you came from already?
If that's within,
I don't want to rip the dude or anything.
No.
But these are the considerations filmmakers feel, and they think that like
that they're not being serious about the craft if they don't put themselves in that kind of
right. And there's like this mythic thing now, like especially Kevin Smith with Clerks and all that. There's this like, I need to go into debt. Like art is pain, and I need to feel it in my wallet, or just some grandiose thing like that.
Yeah.
That like at the end of the day, like, for the boots on the ground, for people like us that are like in the middle and doing it, like I don't want to ever. That's the one thing I learned. Like, if you're going to make a movie, make it with someone else's money.
No, you're absolutely right.
And I don't mind putting my own money into something when I really do believe in it. But like my wife has specifically said now, like, we're never spending another nickel of our own money on something again. And that's, it's stressful because if you do that, like, it affects your personal relationships.
Yes.
It affects your own bottom line.
Yes.
We work and we make money, and we'll put, we want to support ourselves and make our stuff. But in the same vein, like, if I'll do that, but if I put myself in any more financial danger just to make, a picture, like, I just can't do it anymore. Like, maybe if I was 25 or something, okay, it's a different story. But like, we're adults. Like, it's a different deal.
There's a lot to unpack around that issue.
But these are the things people have to deal with.
Yes.
And like, it goes to, I don't want to keep blabbing and cut you off, but like, it goes back to that whole, like, just go make your movie. Find your tribe, make your movie, take out loans, take out credit cards, and just go make your movie. I'm like, and the odds of you ever seeing a dime from that are like less than, the last show I had, they said it's less of a chance than getting into Harvard, So it's like, again, reckless to recommend it to other people, but I don't know if it comes from a place of like that mythic, like you need to like punish yourself, if it's going to be worth something.
I mean, it's the same thing. Look, I'm going to make like a huge just blanket statement. There's no one way to make it in this industry. And so what's great for you might be disastrous for me.
Right.
And so if those individuals, if that's within their wheelhouse and whatever, to make that move, great, they can do that.
Right.
But to potentially like shame someone else or guilt them or make them feel like they're not as serious about wanting to be part of this business because they're not willing to put themselves in financial dire straits over it is complete bullshit.
And it's not that I'm saying that like Duplass or anybody specifically
I don't think
does
you are.
that.
I don't think you are.
But
obviously there are people out there who have a certain attitude about those kinds of things. And you know, that could be said for really all facets of the industry. I know that you can go down a huge rabbit hole with this one, but like the same thing with like actors or whatever, telling like, just pack up your car, move to LA. You know, like there's all different ways that people say that.
Yeah.
And really it comes down, like the one thing that I've just learned over the last couple of years, especially, is that you just have to do what works for you.
Right.
And as far as, you know, coming back to the whole self-financing the production, I mean, essentially because look, for a hot second, we thought that we were going to maybe do the Seed and Spark for production, but then we all of a sudden found ourselves in kind of a time constraint because we had kind of made verbal promises, especially to our cast, which we had a really large cast. We had 11 people.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of coordinating schedules, especially when they're doing an undeferred payment. And so they're doing us a huge favor.
They know going into it that they're probably working for free.
Exactly. And so, you know, all of a sudden we're getting closer and closer to the date that we said we were going to shoot. And for X, Y, and Z reasons, the Seed and Spark didn't happen as soon as we wanted it to. And so essentially it came down to me and Skylar saying, Skylar and me, what are we going to do about this? And so she and I said, you know, she said, this is what I can contribute. And then I said, this is what I can contribute. And she 100% honored that. I mean, if I could just gush about my executive, she's the most amazing person. I hope to work with her for a million years. And so I couldn't have asked for a more supportive person. She's also the lead in the short. Thanks for my little plug. And in any case, like, look, I will say that for myself, as typically happens in productions, even though I'm not really in that world that much, we went over. I will say that I, too, have a extremely supportive spouse who said, okay, this is what I will kick in. And I am immensely grateful to Derek, my amazing husband. And also I recognize how fortunate I am to have had someone like that. And so I really, really, truly appreciate that there was no debt that was acquired because of production.
That is the dream.
But we did it, you know, so to speak, on a shoestring. So, you know, like I said, all the actors were deferred. The crew, I wish I could have paid them 3 times what we did because they all across the board deserved it.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, they worked at a very moderate rate. You know, our amazing director, Getty Watanabe, you know, he did it for the love of it. And this is his directorial debut. So he, you know, just wanted to have the chance to do this. So there were a lot of things where we didn't have to pay anything at all. But, you know, it's still, sure, you can go out there and shoot with an iPhone, I suppose. And you know, everybody just does it as a favor, but that you do also get to a certain point, I think, where you have to kind of bite the bullet a little bit and say, like, I need to instill a certain level of professionalism to show people that I'm serious about this.
Right. Because you, I mean, as the executive producer, like, you have to guide that ship. That's another, like I said, there's all these stress points for people at different stages. And like, if you lose your shit on set or whatever, then people are like, well, shoot, they don't know what they're doing, you know, or like you said, you can shoot it on an iPhone or whatever, but you're aspiring to something, you know, more.
And also, I mean, look, there are the Steven Soderberghs of the world who can do that and produce something really amazing. Right.
But even he he didn't just start doing this
and
yesterday.
He didn't do it on his own.
Yeah.
You know, and he already, you know, he has, I don't know the specifics, but I assume he has like a, you know, group of people to support him in those endeavors. I could not put out what somebody of his nature could put out with an iPhone.
Right.
So, you know, we went a certain route where, sure, we could have done super guerrilla style, but it wasn't really going to serve me. The project in and of itself is like a fully realized story, but it also is supposed to kind of, you know, the goal is hopefully to do the Whiplash route.
Right.
Where, you know, it's supposed to generate interest in the feature. And again, kind of coming back to that like visual professionalism, I wanted it to look a certain way and I wanted it to be finished a certain way so that people know I'm serious about it, and I believe in it that much. So,
and again, that's not to say that like shooting something on an iPhone if you're just getting started isn't like, again, everybody's got a different thing. Everybody works. Some people specifically want to go and shoot on their iPhone and say like, this is my calling card.
Yep.
This is my thing that makes me special, and go out and do that. But this was your route.
And it just all circles back where, everybody just, you do you.
Right.
And at the end of the day, whether it's a doc that is going to, through production and post, go through 6 years of your life, or something, of a longer or shorter duration, it's going to live with you. Right. It's not going to live with any of the people who are just telling you what they think you should do with your project. Take different people's recommendations under advisement.
Did you feel that anybody that you were working with or anybody that you were using as a sounding board were trying to get you to do things a certain way that wasn't true to yourself, if you will, that was like somebody was trying to get you to do the Seed and Spark the way they imagined it would be, and you're like, I know this is not something that's going to work for me. Like, somebody that maybe had an agenda, like I said, certainly don't have to name names, but like everybody's always looking out for,
Absolutely. I mean, yes and no. Because I think people are generally well-intentioned.
Right. One hopes.
One hopes.
So you must be new to this business. It's like, that doesn't sound right at all. Well-intentioned.
And so, that's where I try to come from. I'm still a human being though. So, somebody might say something to me and I initially have like a very kind of poor reaction to it.
Right.
But, my point being, yes. Through, the idea for this first happened around December of 2018. So that's when this first kind of started coming together that we were going to shoot something. And we didn't actually shoot until the last weekend in July 2019. Takes time. So 7 months. And kind of like what you were saying with your own project, some of those months, not much was really moving forward because we were kind of figuring this all out on our, as we went along. Right. And over that time, sure, certain suggestions were made that at the end of the day, there was a part of me that was uncertain because, again, I was like, walking through waters that I wasn't familiar with. Mm-hmm. That's a saying. But it is now. But at the same time, at the risk of sounding like just super cliched, like it didn't feel good in my gut. Right. And at the end of the day, I knew pretty early on when even just the very general topic of crowdfunding came up, it became clear pretty quickly that I was going to have to be the name behind it. And I was like, I get it. I wrote this. I'm going to be, an executive producer on it. Like it made sense to me, but at the same time, obviously it wasn't really what my first choice, but it was the choice. Right. It was the choice that had to happen.
Did you feel you were forced into that? Did you feel like you were like not like, cause you're not comfortable. You're going into something. Right. You're not exactly comfortable, navigating, new waters, and you're trying to find, your bearings and all of that. Mm-hmm. Did you feel like you weren't getting support from people that you were expecting to support you? Or were you just like, I have to take ownership of this thing, and do it, by any means necessary? But like, how do you get past that fear of navigating into new waters? And just like, well, what do I do? And again, it's like, it's part of the internal conflict is like, I'm scared as fuck to take the next step because I don't know what I'm doing. Yep. But if people see that I don't know what I'm doing, they're not going to support the picture. So I have to put on a happy face. Yep. But and for me at least, and that's kind of why I would take breaks, because like I would get locked up, putting too much, weight to other people's view of the project. Yes. And now you get into this weird headspace where you're like, I need to put on a happy face. I need to show my confidence. I need to do all that, but I really don't know what I'm doing. So like, how do I do that without driving myself absolutely insane?
I would say that it was like an 80-20 split. 80%, I was like, and it's something that you have to kind of, I speak for myself only. It was something that I had to eventually kind of step into And it's like, you know, buy a pair of new shoes and you have to walk in them a little bit before they finally feel comfortable and like they're your shoes.
Break them in.
So break them in. So at first it felt completely foreign to me to do something like this. And also, like you said earlier, I'm not 21. I'm not like some young kid who has, you know, like I'm further along age-wise and career-wise. And so that actually, you know, that's something else that's kind of a component of this is like, at one point, do you feel like, is this just like totally ridiculous that I'm the age that I'm at and I'm doing a crowdfunder for a short?
Right.
So
it's something I wouldn't even have considered.
And I mean, that was definitely in my mind because this career, this industry as a whole, people come in and out of it. People walk away and come back to it. But then it's its own little ecosystem. And outside of that, you know, the world at large, you know, people are doctors and lawyers and teachers, and they, you know, kind of move along a more linear trajectory.
Right.
And so definitely there was a fear of like, are people going to think I'm just kind of nuts to do this? Like I said, with the whole, you know, breaking in the shoes, there comes a point where it's like, well, what do I have to lose if, you know, if I don't do this?
Right.
And
you don't want to have regret that, like, I should have, like, you don't want to be 65.
Yeah.
And dive into this, and then everyone's like, look at the old fart trying to break into the bit. Like, whoa, like you got to do it while you can.
You got to do it while you can. And also, at the end of the day, you're a human being. Of course, the idea of what other people think of you might affect you to some degree, but you have to just do what's going to make you happy. As long as, you know, to your comfort zone, you're not putting yourself in any kind of danger financially or otherwise. You're not hurting someone else. You know, like if you're just trying to do something creative and put something cool or fun or different out into the world, I think you should pursue that. Right. So eventually I got to that point. And again, I will double down on saying that like my husband was really instrumental in that, because absolutely there were multiple times where I'm like, I'm just abandoning this. I don't want to do it anymore. You know, there definitely were times where I just felt like for whatever reason, it wasn't going to work out.
During the campaign itself or beforehand?
No, beforehand. Okay. Before production. Mm-hmm. Those first 6 months. Mm-hmm. And he really was the one who was like, you have to give this a chance. Like you have to try it. If you've never tried it before, how do you know?
Right. Maybe you do it and you don't even like it. And like, well, I gave it a shot and it's not really what I want to do. Sometimes people don't know what they want to do until they do it.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I understand how fortunate I am to have somebody who believed in me during the many times where I did not believe in myself and think that I could like really do something like this. Nobody does it alone. So I'm not saying that only my husband. Obviously, I have a huge network of people who are just loving and supportive and believe in me, Skylar among them.
So going back to the Seed and Spark then, so you're in the Seed and Spark, you're raising the money. What was your goal at the time?
8,600.
8,600. See, that's like I raised 6,000 on my Kickstarter, like 8,600 is just like,
I had somebody who was like,
it's so low it's so low a number comparatively, but it's still $8,600.
I had someone go, why don't you just round it up to 10? I was like, I don't need to. Why do I want to make it harder on myself? Like, I appreciate your confidence in me attaining
if you want to give me the other 1,400, I'll
exactly.
take it.
If you want to like
give me an executive producer credit, sure,
make
no
up
problem.
that difference, cool.
Right.
Yes. So 8,600.
So you had $8,600. Now the way Seed and Spark is like you just have to get to 80%, and then you get that.
Yes. If you get to 80% of your total goal, you essentially get what they call the green light. Mm-hmm. And so even if you don't make a cent over 80%, when the campaign closes, and to my knowledge, I think all their campaigns are 30 days. I don't think there are extensions.
Oh, okay. Can you choose 60 to start, or
I don't think so.
30,
I
and
think it's
because that's actually a good thing. Because a lot of the thought process, especially with the Kickstarter, is how long am I going to do it? If I do it for too short a time,
right?
Like I won't have enough time to raise the money I need. But if I do it too long a time, now there's fatigue. And now the people like they don't want to see you begging for money for 60 days.
That is, I would say, again, my own little 2 cents. The biggest thing that people need to be aware of when they're doing something like this, you do not want to tap out your potential community of supporters too soon. And I don't mean financially tap them out. I mean like getting to the point where they're just like, blocking your email because you're,
I get it. I gave you my $20 already. Jesus, fuck.
And that was something that, again, Seed and Spark was really good about in terms of saying like, you cannot just have your communication solely be about like, give me money. Like people, again, it's like silly to even have to say it. People don't want to hear that, and so you have to be really delicate about how you communicate with your audience. And so, I made very deliberate choices about like how often I was going to email people, how often. I mean, I set up, Facebook, Twitter, Insta specifically for the project. So I still have my personal accounts, and I had to make a decision. Okay, obviously the ones connected to the project, I could have kind of free reign to, I was like communicating every day, but it certainly was still not, hey, we're still at this point. We need X, X amount more.
We're so close. Please.
Please. I was introducing our cast. I was showing pictures from, on set. I was
but you had great behind the scenes content. It's like, it's got to be extra value, extra materials that make it worth it for someone.
That's in large part to our phenomenal photographer. I'm going to give a shout out to Nathan McMahon.
Do it.
Use him, guys. If you need an on-set photographer, he's amazing. And so I was being really cognizant about not getting on people's nerves.
Right.
And in retrospect, if I could say I'm proud of something, I'm proud that I think I balanced that. But it's still really terrifying because, again, Seed and Spark, they kind of prep you for what the usual trajectory of a campaign will be, meaning that when you first launch, you're going to get a flurry of pledges, and it's going to be this amazing thing. You're like, oh my God, we're going to hit our goal in like a week. And then
crickets for weeks.
They hit the brakes.
Yeah.
And weeks 2 and 3.
It really does seem to be a formula.
For sure.
Yeah, it's the one thing that kind of fits into that formula.
Because you have essentially two groups of people. You have the people that it's the same as like it implies to so many things. Like when you send out a Facebook invite for a party, you have the group of people that immediately RSVP and tell you whether or not they can come, and then you have nothing, and then all of a sudden in the last like hour before you're like, hey guys, like the party's tonight, then all of a sudden you get the other group of people who are like, oh sorry, I can't make it, or like I'll be there. So you have those two groups.
No middle ground.
Yeah, no middle ground, and that applies to crowdfunding as far as how I experienced it. So weeks 2
we were very, very similar to that.
Yeah. So weeks 2 and 3 were very, very slow to try to maintain momentum. This isn't something that you have to do, but we did a matching thing for, I think it was like, we kind of split the difference. So it was like 2.5 weeks to the 3.5 week mark. We did a matching program where like, at first we said like up to 1,000, but then we got a really great response, and so we kind of kept going. And I think eventually we matched 1,700.
That's great. Because then people feel like their money's going even farther.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that's another category of people. Some people like just want a little extra incentive.
Right.
And so that could be something that you use to your advantage. And then again, things slowed down. We did hit the 80% mark, I think, with a week to go.
Great.
So that was wonderful. And at that point, I felt good. I felt, okay, like if this truly is all we're going to get, then that's fine. We'll make it work. But I'm a human being. And so I think it's human nature to be like, oh, but I do, like, is it going to look bad if I don't get 100%?
What do we have to sacrifice?
Yeah. And I had to just kind of come to peace about that. And eventually what ended up happening is like in that last week of the campaign, to my recollection, like, here and there pledges were coming in, and essentially the last 5 days of the campaign, I was still doing my normal communications through social, but I did do, kind of a big email send out and saying like 5 more days, like, here we go. And then I think the morning of, the campaign was going to close at 11 o'clock on a Friday. And I was really debating, do I send out another email? Because again, I was really, really worried about being that person. I don't want anybody in my life to think that I am just like using them as a cash cow, you know? And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to do it. And then if they don't want to give, nobody's twisting their arm. And so I sent out the email with like 2 hours to go. And then I messaged Skylar and said, hey, here's what I did. And she's like, great, I'm going to do a text. And so between my last email and her last like mass text, all of a sudden, it was like the first couple hours of the campaign, and we went from, I think, 87% to 102% when we closed. And that was like in the last 2 hours. And so like it was this crazy high, but also incredibly like stressful. And had a couple people donate twice, and that was really...
It's above and beyond.
Yeah. And so eventually we closed at 102%. And really proud. Would have been proud if we hadn't hit the 100 mark, but I'm very grateful that we got where we were.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, when we did ours, I think we hit, and with Kickstarter, it's an all or nothing.
Right.
So I think we hit it with a couple of days left to go. Our goal was 6,000. We got 6,500. But yeah, those last few days are just like, and I didn't have a mailing list at the time. I didn't really have it. I was just like kind of putting out the vibe like through Kickstarter and on Facebook and stuff. I wasn't really using Twitter back then at all. And yeah, people do tend to wait until, because it's like
people are very motivated by deadlines.
Yeah, and you like people are living their own lives and they're not living their life on your crowdfunding calendar.
I mean, it's that thing,
so
like,
people forget and they do things and they go on about their own business, and you're like they're fucking with me. These people are. All
you're thinking is like, why is this person not giving to me?
I know you know about the movie. Just give me the goddamn money now.
And they have a million things going on. Maybe they have a sick baby, or maybe they,
any number of things.
Whatever the case may be. But it's like that saying, like, you're only ever, except for a select few people, the background actor, and everybody else is like.
Yeah, exactly.
Life,
so like nobody's thinking about like they need to be reminded, and I had learned that lesson. Like you said, like, do I send this other email? Mm-hmm. It's like if someone's going to get pissed off because they got another email in their inbox, fine. Like I'm already sending this to you because I know you're receptive to it. Mm-hmm. But if like too many of these is going to, then fine, hit unsubscribe and go on with your life. Like I'm not going to beat myself up over your choices. But in the same vein, give me your damn money.
I will say, again, coming back to this repeated point of like being human, I think probably the biggest lesson I learned throughout this, specifically the Seed and Spark, is really this idea of like, you really can't take anything personally. Sure, there were a couple people in my life where I was surprised that they decided not to contribute.
Really? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a couple people,
right.
But
that you knew they knew about it.
I knew they knew.
Like, oh, the email bounced or something. Like, I know you know about it.
Even to the point where they said, like, hey, I'm going to get, like, they acknowledged it.
That's even worse.
But here's the thing is that, like, sure, that was a bummer. But I don't know what, like you were saying, I don't know what's going on with them. And maybe I'm...
yeah, you can't take that
I don't know to what degree they get distracted. Like my husband, time and time again, because like I'm usually pretty prompt on like email responses, and I get like really annoyed if like somebody ignores me for like 3 days, and he's like, not everybody.
Since every one of my emails to you is like days later.
No, not that is not.
You're subtweeting me to my face.
That is not like a passive aggressive thing at you. And so like I know that like and I have total blind spots in other parts of my life. So I'm not saying that like,
no, of course.
And my point though is that in terms of how I might take things personally about certain people not contributing to the campaign, that's one really, really, really small part of who they are to me and what their friendship has given me. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that sometimes I'm not petty about it, right. or I, like I become myopic about it. But it's like, okay, maybe that person didn't contribute to this campaign, but this person also was there for me when like my father passed away.
Right.
So it's like, am I really going to get upset with them because
they're not giving you $20?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so, all people cannot be all things to you. And that includes for whatever reason they couldn't support you in that one particular way, that's fine. Mm-hmm. And I think people need to, sure, again, the whole human thing. If anybody decides to do a crowdfunder, they should really reflect on that, because you can ruin friendships if you're going to start getting petty and bitchy because somebody didn't throw $20 your way.
Right.
And you don't know the reasons why. And you don't really deserve to know the reasons why. Like they don't
Their
need to
businesses,
explain
especially
themselves.
with money. Like I don't need to tell you why I didn't give you $20. Maybe, it could be any number of things. And
it's fine, So and if you were gonna make or break that campaign off their contribution, well, then that really speaks more to you not being properly prepared for the crowdfunder.
Sure.
You should never be just dependent on even a handful of people. Like let's say you have a list of 10 people who you thought were gonna give and they didn't. That's not really on them. Like you should have been better prepared to still make it a success without that support. And I think
I don't think people think about that a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe
I'm wrong. Maybe they do.
Don't quote me on this, but I think Seed and Spark threw out some stat that like of all the people that you reach, only about 8% are probably going to give to your campaign.
That feels so low.
Feels so low. I mean, between the heavy lifting between Skylar and my, connections, that number was higher. But I think the reason why Seed and Spark says that is because what they are striving for with the people who use their platform is that they are truly trying to build a community for you. So it really should go beyond your personal connections. And maybe I don't think there's going to be a next round for me personally. I'm going to find other ways of getting funding if I do this again.
So you don't think you would crowdfund again?
No.
I mean, what else? You just want to sell a script and walk away, or
no? I think that
find investors.
Yeah.
That whole.
I mean it
because then you have to pay those people back.
Absolutely.
That's a whole other...
Although never make promises. I was just in the panel the other night where they were saying, don't ever promise people you'll pay them back. But, okay, I had a really great experience with Seed Spark. So I want to make that really clear. It has absolutely nothing to do with the platform. It just, kind of like I was telling you before, after it was all over, I only kind of realized in retrospect how, even under the best of circumstances, even after hitting 102% funded, I was exhausted.
Right. Were you doing this? See, this is what I wanted to ask you. Were you doing this all yourself? Was Skylar also posting? Because I'm not friends with the rest of your crew.
Sure.
Like, were they posting? Were your actors sharing it and liking it and stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, so that's another thing that Seed and Spark encourages people to do. They want you to have a team.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be a solo effort. However, I think that, and this isn't a negative thing, it's just the way it is. If you are the person whose name is on that campaign, it is your baby.
You can only have one person's name on the campaign. Like, this campaign is by you.
Correct. They will show your team members. Both Skylar and Kurt were my team members. But at the end of the day, it's your baby. And I did have great support. Skylar, again, she was absolutely tremendous. Like a very significant portion of our pledges came through her reach out.
So you didn't feel like you had to do all the heavy lifting yourself?
No, I mean, I did the majority of it in terms of like the social outreach and yeah, I would say that like if we're really gonna like look at hardcore numbers, percentage wise, the majority of the pledges came through my contacts. But the bottom line is that I wouldn't have had a successful Seed and Spark if it wasn't for Skylar, if it wasn't for Kurt reaching out, if it wasn't for the other actors, all of them in different degrees advocated for the Seed and Spark.
Good.
And so I'm thankful to everybody who did that, and a couple of them pledged to it as well. The actors.
I mean, because now they're losing money on the deal.
I know. I was like, you really
like
didn't
you're
have
already
to do
working
that.
for nothing.
You absolutely didn't have to do that, guys. I promise you, they were not part of my reach out. I did not tell them that.
Well, it just means that they believe in what they did.
Yeah, and that meant a lot to me. I mean, same as what I was saying earlier about when a creative would pledge to it, even and actually with what you were saying earlier, that like when you were doing your own campaign and you would see other ones that you were interested in, you would throw a couple dollars that way. That was happening with me. I was floored the first time somebody that I had kind of like, doing air quotes, met somebody through Seed and Spark because they were doing their own campaign at the time, that all of a sudden I saw a pledge come through from them. And I was like, what? But they're in the middle of their own campain and they can't afford to be. It touched me beyond,
I even had, when we had, I had to call, I think it was when we had the Indiegogo in 2015, I had to call support for some reason. And we had a fiscal sponsor, so we were going through their page. But at some point I had to call support for something. And Her name is Marina Palmrose. I still remember her name, even though I haven't spoken or had any contact with her in 6 years. She only gave $1, but she like worked for the platform. She was like, and I think maybe she was testing something out, but like she gave $1. And I was like, you didn't have to give me $1.
Yeah.
Like I said, and I remember her name. This is someone who just gave me $1. And like, I remember her. And every time I was putting together the movie and doing the credits and stuff and typing in all the donors' names and stuff, I'm like, that's that lady that gave me the $1. Like, thank you so much.
$1, $1,000, doesn't matter.
Total strangers that were giving me, just $10-20 that like didn't know who I was. I still remember too, one of them gave me like $20 and like it was a total stranger that lived in Texas. And I was like, and I went through the whole course of 7 years saying like this totals I owe her the DVD. And when we got into South by and I released the movie or before it was picked up, and I had sent the DVDs out as like the perks to people 7 years later, and I had wrote her a little note and said, hey, like I still don't know you. We never actually chatted, but like your $20 like stayed at the fore of my mind throughout the entire course of production. Thank you. And she wrote me back. She was like, I don't even know if she remembered who I was, but like over the course of 7 years, I always thought that like these people were like, I gave them that $20 2 years ago and I never heard anything since. Because that's happened to me. Like I've given $20 to projects and like they don't finish and you don't hear from them and you're like, all right, like they're gone or whatever. But like I would always throughout the entire course of production and post be like, thank you, total stranger.
Yep. I know, Seed and Spark, and I'm sure all the other platforms have these success stories where, like, for them, it's not just one successful campaign. It's people who've done, like, 6, 7 of them, and I don't know how these people are doing it, but they
we'll
are.
Have to get them on the show and they can tell us what their secretive success.
And as far as I'm concerned, me saying that I am probably not going to do another crowdfunder does not mean that I am any way, like, bashing that avenue for acquiring funds. It's just, again, you doing you.
Right.
And saying like, this is what I feel comfortable with, or and maybe I'll do some research and exploring of other ways and I'm not going to find anything. Maybe it's like, well, I guess this is the way I have to go.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, even like I won't like I will do, it won't be a Kickstarter. It will probably be on Seed and Spark because, I had,
I mean, it's a perfect platform for you.
I had other bad experiences with Kickstarter. Indiegogo's fine, but they're kind of like going down more a product road. And I just don't think it's as popular a platform as it used to be. So I probably won't do those. Like I'll probably do a Seed and Spark. But in the same vein, like 6 years ago, Seed and Spark didn't exist.
Right.
So like you might feel the way you do now, but maybe Seed and Spark develops into something else. Maybe another player enters the market in a few years.
I mean, there could be
does
things
it a different way
we can't comprehend
that
right now.
speaks to you. Yeah. Like you said in the very beginning of the whole thing, like I reserve the right to change my mind at any time.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, all right. Well, plug the movie one more time.
All right.
Let people know, even though it's not out yet. Tell people about it. Tell people how they can learn more about it.
So the film is called She Had It Coming. It's a supernatural dark comedy about a woman who she was killed at a baby shower. That's part of the feature version, and what you would be seeing in the short is the seance that is held that gathers all the suspects of who may have killed her at the baby shower, and they get to the bottom of what happened to her. Now you can keep up with all of our updates on post, and eventually as we get out into the festival circuit through our social channels. There's a She Had It Coming Facebook page, She Had It Coming Insta, and She Had It Coming Twitter.
Yeah, stay up to date on all the She Had It Comings. Anna, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Head Above Water, because that's what it is. Like we have our head above water and we're just trying to figure ourselves out in this huge giant ocean of entertainment and the film business and all of that and everything that we have to do. So Anna, again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining me, and good luck with She Had It Coming.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
So that was just part one of our interview with Anna Keizer. We had such a wonderful conversation that we had to spread it out into 2 separate episodes. So our second episode we'll have Anna come back and finish up with us and talk about some other things beyond just crowdfunding, general filmmaking stuff, and what it's like to make your very first project. So feel free to stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with our second episode. And like I said, we have some great guests coming up in the next few weeks. So like, follow, and subscribe, and we will see you guys soon. Thanks for joining us. Take care. Bye-bye.